Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Marianne Mendoza. She's an angel mom whose son, unfortunately, was killed by an illegal alien. She currently serves as a consultant and advisory board member for We Build the Wall, Inc. Thank you for coming on the program, Marianne. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. This is Jack from Virginia, and you're on Cold War Radio.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And we're all very sorry for your loss. I can't even imagine how that feels, especially when you see half of the political world in our country more or less cheerleading for illegal aliens. It blows my mind, and our prayers are with you.
Thank you very much, and it does blow my mind too, trust me.
I can imagine, and I'd like to hear about that. I mean, we just heard that the president moved a day or two ago to cancel the family loophole that's allowed illegal immigrant parents and children to pour into this country. He's proposing new rules, or he did, that would replace the Flores settlement that was found in court in 2015 that basically created a de facto catch and release policy for the families and encouraged these coyotes and whoever else is organizing this to get kids in the crowd, regardless if they're related to the people coming in. It's a hideous thing, but do you think this is going to help?
Absolutely. That's a huge incentive. The cartel know that that's a free ticket in to have a child with somebody. There's 15,000 children currently missing in Mexico, so that gives you a kind of an idea of what's been happening with these children. And we don't even know about the children in Guatemala and Honduras. We do know that, parents are willing to sell their children under the pretense, we're going to take your child to America for a better life. You'll be able to join them soon. So absolutely, this is what's needed to be done for a long time, and I applaud our president for doing it.
I got to tell you, I listened to people ridiculing the president and others that were talking about this situation, but I got to say, right after President Trump was elected, I was on Radio Row at a FAIR convention, an anti-illegal immigration. It's actually an immigration reform group.
Right.
And I spoke to a couple border sheriffs. And before I ever heard the president say it or heard it on the media, these sheriffs told me that they interviewed women, mothers, that pumped their little girls full of birth control medication before they made the trip because they knew they were going to get raped.
Absolutely. And, angel families and, the platform that we speak on is talking about American victims of illegal alien crime. But, there is a flip side to that. And a lot of these women and children who do come over the border, they have to pay the cartel thousands and thousands of dollars. And so our politicians who are encouraging this and not fighting to close our borders, secure our borders, are actually aiding and abetting in modern-day slavery because these people end up in our country and they end up working for unbelievable wages, and a lot of them are, put into the sex trafficking business. And this is something that our fellow Americans need to be aware of. This isn't, just about Americans. It's about these people being taken advantage of who are pouring into our country.
And thank you for joining us, Marianne. This is Jack. I find it very frustrating because I've read about your loss and the loss of many other fine families, and we've had this situation. The reasons why this is going on brought up to Congress since the president's been elected, and to this date, and going back decades prior, our Congress, our elected leaders, refuse to tackle this problem and pass common sense legislation that's easy to follow instead of continuing this one way with the border. I mean, last week we had a story about them arresting the people at the chicken plants, and come to find out there's laws that prevent these chicken plants from not hiring illegal aliens. So you've got loophole after loophole after loophole. And in the meantime, you have fine, upstanding Americans losing their lives, risking their lives, and wanting something better for their families. And I guess what I'm saying is, do you feel the same frustration that I'm trying to let the listeners hear about?
Absolutely. Americans have become collateral damage in this non-movement, this non-productive, fight for our congressional leaders to do. They take plenty of time, and I've been at many hearings, congressional hearings, that they bring these illegals in and talk about how terrible they're treated at our border detention centers. They have not had one hearing, during all of this. They've had a few angel families testify, but when you're in those, and this was years ago that they were having those, when you're in those hearings, I watch the congressional leaders who are running these things. They're looking at the watch. They're on the phone. They're staring at the ceiling. Al Franken actually fell asleep in one of them. This is how much they care about their fellow Americans. But they spend plenty of time in the last 6 months having all these hearings about the treatment of these children. My child was killed by a repeat illegal alien criminal who is allowed to stay in our country. He didn't deserve to die the way he did. My son had dreams, but they care about the dreamers, the non-citizen dreamers who are coming here. And this is frustrating beyond belief to angel families, and it goes beyond the death of our children and our loved ones. We have legal fees. I don't. The illegal who killed my son in the car accident died also, and I was spared a trial or not having justice served. But angel families have tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees trying to get justice for their families. These illegals, run back to Mexico, and there's medical bills. There's so many things that the average American doesn't understand of why we're speaking out. Nothing I say or do will bring my son back, but I'm hoping that something I say or do will prevent this from happening to another family.
And I think that it's very noteworthy that you do this, because, like you said, you have to foot all these costs. There's no one out there like funding the angel moms' fight for justice yet. Anytime the president, the administration tries to do anything positive towards eliminating the loopholes or just putting up the wall, they are challenged by deep-pocketed agencies, organizations within the United States, and some that are funded from outside the United States. And it's like they have the deep pockets. They can go, boom, right to court, sue. And I'm sure that what the president's administration did this week to try to do something while Congress does nothing will be ended up in court again.
Absolutely. The ACLU is the first and foremost one to file all these lawsuits. But there's so many 501c3 tax-exempt organizations, pro-illegal, pro-open border organizations that file these lawsuits too. And I just find it hard to believe that they allow these organizations to continue operating within the United States tax-free.
Absolutely.
And using that money, aiding and abetting criminals to come into our country, and aiding and abetting them by providing free legal counsel to them.
Marianne, I'd like to ask you, before this tragedy hit your family, were you involved in politics at all before that?
I was not. I went on many ride-alongs with my son. I was fully aware of illegal crime here in Arizona. I just didn't know the extent that it was happening. And after my son was killed, the research that I started doing, I was appalled at the leniency shown to illegal criminals in our court system for a crime that you or I would commit as an American citizen, and we'd be in jail. These illegal criminals are often just given a slap on the wrist, or they're given probation, or they're deported and they're back next week. So that really catapulted me into this fight, because I thought we need to start making people aware of, on their ballots when they're voting, don't just go through the list of the judges and say, yes. Start investigating these judges and how they're handling these cases in your jurisdictions, because it matters.
And not just the judges. The reason I asked the question is because myself, I always felt naively that the Republican Party was going to be the organization that stood up for American sovereignty and stopped this thing. And, you get to a point where you're scratching your head going, there's a Republican Congress and a Republican president. What's going on here? I want you to listen to a short clip from Ken Cuccinelli, formerly of Virginia. Now he's the immigration czar, I guess you'd call him. But I want you to listen to him calling out the Republican leadership on how this happened.
Partisan in our criticism. I mean, when Paul Ryan was the speaker, Paul Ryan submarined the best opportunity we had legislatively when Bob Goodlatte's bill, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, came through. And not enough people will challenge their own leadership in the GOP to beat them down when they are wrong. And we had leadership there that defended the status quo, that did not, they were the Chamber of Commerce Congress. They wanted illegal immigration, and this is not just left and right. There's plenty of people who are often associated with the right, although I don't know why the Chamber of Commerce is. I like the NFIB sticker on the back of the phone here. Get the small businesses. They actually make better representatives. But, you know, these problems have been bipartisan, and I agree with the congressman about the nature of the rhetoric and how many people on the left view not wanting this president to succeed. But on substance, that isn't the only place there's a problem. I actually think the 2020 election can help solve that problem. I believe when you run on things and people know this is what I get if I vote for X, if this party becomes the majority, I get this bill. Look at what the president did with the Scalia Supreme Court seat. He actually put a list of judges out and added later to that, but they were all in the mold of that list.
So I didn't really want to waste our time with you with a clip, but it just it's very apparent to me now that a large portion of the Republican Party is for these conglomerates and these chicken plants and these Hormel Foods and everywhere else that basically uses a flavor of slave labor and is supportive of these illegals. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I was at a town hall for CNN with Paul Ryan, and they had me stand up, and I told him the story about my son, and he was all, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And the next person they had stand up and talk was a dreamer, and he's making all kinds of promises to her that they're going to take care of her. So I knew at that moment Paul Ryan was not the person that we needed to be Speaker of the House, because it just, he wasn't going to be supporting our president whatsoever. It was a big disappointment when we had control of the House that more wasn't done in those first 2 years. And, the things that the president ran his campaign on, that our elected officials there in Congress didn't, take up the fight and go with it and try and get things passed. It was very disheartening.
Well, Marianne, I see that you're part of the We Build a Wall. We had former Congressman Tancredo on a couple of weeks ago, and I was so uplifted by that progress that's being made there. Is there any updates to what is happening with as far as the wall building via the We Build a Wall project?
We have several sites that are picked out. Unfortunately, we can't put it out publicly because you do have the ACLU and all these pro open border people that will file lawsuits immediately against the landowners or us to stop our progress. And so we have to keep it pretty tight to the chest and get moving on the project until it's past the point of no return. But we are definitely moving forward with another section of wall like we did in Sunland Park. And, we're working hand in hand with Fisher Industries. And Tommy Fisher is an amazing man and has a superior product, 80-year lifespan steel that he uses versus 20 that most of these contractors are using on the border.
Yeah, it was amazing.
A paved road, lighting for the Border Patrol, sensors that, sense vehicles digging, walking 60 feet out from either side of the wall. So it's a superior product for less than the cost that most of these bids have come in. And unfortunately, CBP has awarded these contracts, and these companies are just sitting on the money in their accounts, drawing interest on taxpayer millions of dollars that have been given to them and doing nothing. And it's just sad that, President Trump recognizes what Tommy Fisher can do, but because Tommy Fisher contributed to Trump's campaign in 2016, there's a lot of pushback in D.C. about awarding Tommy Fisher any contracts, which is really another, indication of wasteful D.C. spending, government spending.
Well, I hope he gets the patent for all the equipment moving and the way he's building. I saw that video of how they can put up that amount of fence in such a short period of time. And that's very uplifting to see that going on, because we get frustrated, just like we're frustrated with anything that has to do with immigration. But the wall, especially, because that's, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. And they like to think it was literally. I'm like, no, one way or another, it's going to hurt Mexico if we have to keep, putting this deal up.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'm good. I'm happy to see that. Now, one last thing. Now, this is a big positive for me. I went and looked. I saw recently where the Women for Trump were having a problem with the top tier tech people that like to shut out anyone that opposes their left leaning agenda. And I went to the site and noticed that you're part of the crew. So how is it being part of the Women for Trump movement as you head into the re-election campaign next year?
It's incredible. We had an event last night, which was happening simultaneously across the country, bringing women together. And I bring the aspect of an angel mom to the whole mix of things, and have a view of illegal immigration, which adds to the mix. And it's time that women, we're going to be celebrating the 100-year anniversary of women's suffrage. And, we need to be able to stand boldly and say in public, I support President Trump, I'm voting for him in 2020, and not be afraid. These liberals, these Antifa, all these people who try and intimidate people in public, I have a right to say I support my president just as much as they have a right to say they don't. And this is why this is a message that we're trying to get out, to empower women to be able to say we support our president, and get out there and vote, and make sure that we get, women registered who probably aren't, and men and young adults is the same. Try and get them registered to vote and make them understand the importance of keeping this man in office, because I can't imagine where we would be as a country if Hillary Clinton had won in 2016. I am so thankful that, President Trump made that step. He didn't need this job. He didn't need the grief that comes with it. And he donates his salary every quarter. This is a man who loves this country. I've met with him personally. I want your listeners to understand this man loves this country and its citizens. And he supports you and I. He knows what we want, and he's fighting for that.
Outstanding. Marianne, I have a young caller from California that has a question for you. Sean, go ahead.
Hey, my question to you is how many people are in your group? I mean, it's pretty much sounding really big, and I hope it gets bigger.
In which group?
Your group, We Build a Wall.
We've got a beautiful board of directors that's put together in an advisory board. But, Brian Colbadge and Amanda Shea, they're the co-founders. And, they started this all up in December of last year, and it just went gangbusters. And we've been having some events, and people continue to, call in and get on our website, webuildawall.us, donate. And, we're just going to keep showing our politicians this is what the American people want. And we're going to show them how to do a job that they're failing to do in D.C. for us.
All right, thanks for the call, Sean. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest on tonight. It's Marianne Mendoza, an angel mom, whose son, unfortunately, was killed by an illegal alien, currently a consultant and advisory board member for We Build the Wall Incorporated. Marianne, I'm very impressed with the advisory board. As Jack stated earlier, we had Tom Tancredo on here twice in 2 weeks. I mean, that guy is compelling to listen to. I also saw down on the border, on location, that Steve Bannon is involved with this. Have you had any interaction with him? He's one of the guys that I wish was still in the administration personally. But anyway, have you been able to talk to him?
I interact with him all the time.
Do you really?
Yeah, I interact with him all the time. He's a great guy. I mean, another man who understands the importance of border security. We've got Sheriff David Clark, who's on our advisory board. It's just a really rounded out group of people from different avenues of life and different perspectives of border security. And, that's why Brian put the advisory board together that he did, because he knew he needed to hear from all avenues and people who've been affected differently in our quest, to have our borders secure.
Absolutely. And Brian's been on the program as well as several other board members. I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. And just you have a lot of things going on the web. You have your own website, sergeantbrandonmendoza.org, a Facebook page, more toward We Build the Wall, facebook.com/WeBuildTheWall, website WeBuildTheWall.us. How can people get in touch with you on Twitter, or what would you like to say to our audience that could help, push this ball closer to the goal line?
My son's Memorial Foundation is sergeantbrandonmendoza.org. That is it's non-political, and it's strictly a community-based organization that I keep my son's memory alive and continue the work that he was doing in the community. Angelfamilies.com is our website of the Angel Family community, and we are fighting to change legislation. We played a big part in the anti-sanctuary bill being passed down in Florida. We're working on tax remittance in several different states to start happening. And I'm on Twitter, but my main account, at MA Mendoza480, has been suspended by Twitter since the middle of July.
Oh, no.
And I'm on Twitter at Marianne, but in a bunch of numbers, 665 something. But they want me to remove 6 tweets from my main account. And I was on Fox and Friends, and President Trump actually saw me on there and tweeted out that Twitter needs to reinstate me, which they haven't done. I have an attorney in touch with Twitter Legal. But at this point, with the antitrust laws, we're not able to sue Twitter or Facebook. I just got out of a 7-day Facebook jail also for retweeting a Reuters article. So they're coming after me.
I love you, Marianne. Just so you know, I love you.
Keep fighting.
Yeah, keep fighting.
I am, and I'm going to actually start a blog so that nobody can shut me down. And
there you go.
Do my own thing here.
I want to give you one more opportunity because of something that you said. What were the different projects and things with the community that Sergeant Mendoza, your son, was involved in? What's some of his legacy, ma'am?
Well, he was a very humble man, and I found out after he was killed. I mean, he had already bought 3 bicycles for 3 grandchildren that grandparents were raising in his beat. We presented those to the children.
So he was a police officer. Police officer.
Yes.
Okay,
and
continue.
He would buy presents. He would provide Christmas for families in the area who were less fortunate, which I have continued to do that. I contribute to the Boys and Girls Club Back to School Backpack Program. I've purchased playground equipment at the Boys and Girls Club where he went in and mentored children. And I have continued his annual Mendoza Thanksgiving dinner. We fed over 650 people last year.
Wow.
And I'm going to try and ramp that more up and start gearing it towards homeless veterans in the coming years, just because I feel that we need to acknowledge our homeless veterans. And I know my son had a soft spot. I have a son who's in the military also. And so, I want to make sure that I keep his legacy alive. And he was very well loved. He mentored a lot of children at that Boys and Girls Club. And I had children come up to me after he was killed saying, "Mrs. Mendoza, who's going to buy us pizza and ice cream?" And on his days off, he'd go to the park and play kickball with them and buy them all pizza or ice cream or something. So he was an amazing man, mentoring these children, telling them to stay off drugs, stay out of trouble, out of gangs, get an education, make something out of your life. And a lot of these children told me they wanted to be a police officer because of my son.
Oh, my goodness. That's so great, Miss Mendoza. I have to tell you, my age, I was impacted by the Boys and Girls Club when it was still the Boys Club. Actually, I learned how to swim there, and I had many interactions with people like your son that used to come and, a bunch of underage kids. And there's a Pittsburgh Pirate running the scoreboard, while we're playing basketball or whatever. It was just great. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, and I hope you come back again sometime. I'd love to hear this is something that's in progress, so we might have to get you to report back.
I'm going to be at Feet to the Fire this year, so if you guys want to schedule an interview with me, I'll be there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the program. Marianne Mendoza, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, Jack. Good interview, man. Heartstrings for
Amazing
days.
woman. I mean, that's what right there on the front line battlefield. Those of you listening, I mean, I feel like I'm part of the team, doing what I do to help you out on your show just that little bit. And all the listeners, all this, we should be charged up